Ever get that feeling? Like you're trying to understand all those government organizations, but it's like a puzzle.
A puzzle?
Yeah, with like a secret code of acronyms. CIA, FBI, NSA,
Oh, yeah, definitely. I can see that. It can feel pretty overwhelming.
Absolutely overwhelming. So today we're diving into that world. We're going to unpack some of these big, kind of mysterious alphabet agencies.
Yeah, alphabet agencies, right, exactly.
So specifically the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA. And we've got some pretty fascinating information on all three.
Should be interesting. These are the ones you always hear about with national security and intelligence and all that.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of history, our sources say this whole thing, this whole world of alphabet agencies, it really took off after World War II.
Yeah, that makes sense. After World War II, the world was a totally different place. You had nuclear weapons, global tensions rising. The U.S. had to figure out a new way to protect itself.
A new way, absolutely. And it seems like these specialized agencies were a big part of that. But here's the thing, and our sources touch on this too. Not everyone sees these agencies in the same light.
I imagine not. What do you mean?
Well, there's this perspective out there, and we're not endorsing it, but it's worth acknowledging. Some people see these agencies as maybe tools of a hidden elite, operating in the shadows, not really accountable to the public.
Oh, I see. That's a pretty serious claim.
It is. And it raises some important questions about oversight and accountability, which is exactly why we're here today. Our mission, using the info we've gathered, is to figure out, well, what are the official purposes of these agencies? What do they actually do? And what's some of the key historical stuff we should know?
Sounds good. A little transparency.
Transparency, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's start with the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency.
All right, the CIA. So the CIA was created in 1947 with the National Security Act. That whole act, that was a huge deal. It completely reshaped how the U.S. handled national security after World War II.
Huge shift, yeah. And what we're seeing is the CIA's main gig is gathering intelligence, information, and analyzing it.
Analyzing it.
For the president, for other top officials.
No.
Basically, they're trying to figure out what's happening around the world and how it affects the U.S. They're the eyes and ears, you could say.
That's a great way to put it. They're focused on all that foreign intelligence. And, it's not just one big blob. Our sources show the CIA is divided into different branches, each with their own specializations.
Makes sense. Different areas of focus. So we've got the National Clandestine Service, right?
Mm-hmm.
They handle the covert ops, the secret missions, all that.
Right, the undercover stuff.
Exactly. Then there's the Directorate of Intelligence.
Mm.
They're the ones making sense of all that raw info, turning it into actual usable intelligence.
They connect the dots, so to speak. One side's out there in the field getting the info, often in pretty risky situations, and the other side is back home trying to make sense of it all so the government can make informed decisions.
Informed decisions, that's the key. But let's be real. The CIA's history, kind of colorful, to say the least.
Colorful.
I mean, controversies, scandals, you name it. You could write a book about it, maybe a whole library even.
Yeah.
Our sources certainly don't shy away from that.
Yeah, I mean, given what they do, the secrecy, the high-stakes situations, you're bound to have some bumps along the way.
Some bumps, for sure. And one bump that really stands out, and our sources highlight this too, is the Iran-Contra affair back in the 80s.
Oh, Iran-Contra, that was a big one.
It was huge. Basically, the U.S. secretly sold weapons to Iran, and then, get this, some of the money from those sales, it went to support the rebels fighting against the government in Nicaragua. It was completely unauthorized and caused a massive uproar.
Massive, absolutely. And it really exposed this tension between, the president's power, Congress's oversight role, and just how much independence these intelligence agencies actually have.
That tension's still around today.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's shaped so much of the debate about how we hold these agencies accountable for what they do.
Accountability, that's the big word. And speaking of accountability, the CIA has also been criticized for, those enhanced interrogation techniques they used after 9/11. Waterboarding and other stuff. That sparked a huge ethical debate.
It really did. It forced the country to confront this really tough question. Where's the line? When does national security cross over into violating basic human rights? And the CIA was right at the center of that.
Right at the center, yep. Now, shifting gears a bit, our source mentioned something called In-Q-Tel. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like the CIU's own venture capital firm.
The CIA's venture capital firm.
I know, right? Sounds like something out of a spy movie.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, they started it back in 1999.
Interesting approach. So what do? Invest in high-tech gadgets for spies.
Basically. The idea is to find cutting-edge technology, adapt it, and use it for intelligence gathering and analysis. They're looking for the newest, most innovative stuff out there.
Makes sense. Staying ahead of the game.
And get this, In-Q-Tel is based in Silicon Valley.
Oh, wow. Right in the heart of the tech world. That's got to be strategic.
Totally strategic. Direct access to all the latest developments, all the brilliant minds. It's a really forward-thinking strategy.
Definitely. Okay, so we've covered the CIA pretty thoroughly. Let's move on to our next agency, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
The FBI, yep. They've been around longer than the CIA, right?
Yep.
Our source says they were founded in 1908. And their mission, it's pretty broad. They're involved in domestic security and law enforcement.
A two-for-one agency.
In a way. Our source lists out their main goals: protecting the U.S., upholding federal law, fighting both white-collar crime and violent crime, and safeguarding civil rights. It's a lot.
It is a lot. So they're both a law enforcement agency and an intelligence agency all rolled into one. And like the CIA, they've got different divisions to handle all those different responsibilities.
Right, divisions for everything. So we've got the Criminal Investigation Division. They're probably the ones handling, your more traditional crime-solving, catching criminals.
Exactly, your classic detective work.
And then there's the Counterintelligence Division. They'd be focused on stuff like, I imagine, espionage, threats from within the U.S., terrorism.
Terrorism, yeah, absolutely. So you've got one side dealing with, breaking the law, and the other side dealing with threats to national security, all happening right here in the U.S.
Threats from inside and out. Now, the FBI also has some, let's say, controversial moments in its past. Our source mentions this program called COINTELPRO from the 50s and 60s. It sounds kind of scary.
COINTELPRO, yeah, that was a dark chapter for sure.
It was a series of secret and often illegal operations. The goal: to disrupt political groups and individuals that the FBI saw as a threat. And get this, they specifically targeted activists and civil rights leaders.
Targeted them, wow. So they weren't just investigating, they were actively trying to undermine these movements.
Undermine, disrupt, discredit. It was a pretty serious abuse of power, you could say.
Definitely. They were using their resources to suppress dissent, to go after people just because of their political beliefs, not exactly upholding those civil rights they're supposed to protect.
Not exactly. And it gets worse. Our source even brings up the FBI's investigation of Martin Luther King Jr. They were trying to discredit him, paint him in a negative light. It's pretty disturbing.
Disturbing, yeah. It really shows you what can happen when these agencies have too much power, too little oversight. It's a cautionary tale.
A cautionary tale, for sure. All right, on to our last alphabet agency for today, the NSA, the National Security Agency.
The NSA, the youngest of the bunch, founded in 1952. Their main thing is signals intelligence.
Signals intelligence. So that's all about code breaking, intercepting communications, all that, right?
Exactly. It's about gathering information from electronic signals, phone calls, emails, everything. Their official job is to collect that data, analyze it, and then share it with other government agencies who need it.
The ultimate code breakers.
Yeah, you could say that.
And now, the NSA's been in the news a lot lately, especially after Edward Snowden blew the whistle on their PRISM program back in 2013.
PRISM, that was huge. It really changed how we think about privacy and government surveillance.
It did, for sure. So Snowden, he worked for the CIA and the NSA, and he revealed that the NSA was collecting tons of data directly from the servers of companies like Google, Facebook, Apple.
Wow, directly from the source. That's a lot of data.
A massive amount. And here's the thing. While they were supposedly targeting foreigners, our source points out that a ton of data from regular Americans was scooped up too, often without their knowledge or consent.
Without their consent, that's a problem.
A big problem. It really shook people up. And, our source connects this directly to something we see all the time now, people putting tape over their webcams. That's how concerned people are about being watched.
Yeah, I've got tape on mine too. It's a very real, very visible reaction to those revelations. People are worried about their privacy, about being spied on.
Rightfully so. So there you have it, a deep dive into the CIA, FBI, and NSA. Their official missions, a bit of their history, some of the controversies. We stuck closely to the information our sources provided.
Sticking to the facts. And as we've seen, these are complicated organizations. They play a critical role in keeping the country safe. But they've also made some pretty serious mistakes.
Mistakes that we need to learn from. And that brings us to our final thought for today. We've seen the stated goals, the controversies, the power these agencies have. So the question is, how do we, as a society, strike that balance? How do we make sure we're protecting national security without sacrificing individual liberties and public trust?
That's the million-dollar question. It's a constant balancing act, and it requires us to stay informed, to stay engaged, and to keep asking these tough questions.
Keep those questions coming.